Okay, today I'm going to show you an interesting abstract background. That's what I want, is an abstract background using a plastic sheet over a cotton-based canvas. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how I put the plastic sheet onto the canvas. This is just really throwaway plastic sheet. I wanted to use clear plastic to show you the action of the paint as it's spreading. But what I'm going to first do is I'm going to take just little strips of tape like this, and I'm going to just lightly pin the plastic down, not flat. We're not making it flat. So I've got each corner just happens to be a corner that's taped down. And remember, what I want to do is I want this plastic to be loose on the top, because I'm going to form my shapes by having that plastic do all sorts of things completely random. And I've done it before, done it a number of times, this project, and it hasn't worked. So you must be willing to say, look, this project didn't work and it wasn't so good. So we know that that's possible. Most of mine have worked, and it turns out to be a really nice background. So there I've pinned my corners. Just pin your plastic down, and we're going to make sure that this is fairly loose. This one here fairly loose, because we're going to be moving this plastic as we go along. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm using a violet, which is purple and white, purple with white, and I'll just take a little bit of paint, because the paint that I'm pouring underneath the plastic needs to be very thinned down. It's quite thinned down, so I'm picking up a bit of white and I'm putting it in my tub, and I'm adding water. So I'm mixing up a color, and that's looking like the kind of color that can work. We're using violet and black. So the violet is going to mix into and with the black. Okay, so I'll put a little bit of water in here. A tiny bit of water, make it runny. Make it runny. Mix, mix, mix. And we can set that aside. Then I'm going to put a bit of black. Now remember, this is an abstract painting, and in a previous video I've mentioned, whoa, take it easy with black. Well, in abstraction that's not necessarily the case. When I say don't use black or be careful of black, I'm talking about nature and natural scenes, landscape, seascape. I'm using my old brush. Doesn't really matter, because the black's going to do what it wants to do. And I'm making it quite watery. What I'm going to do now is just demonstrate how watery it is, because it's hard to see in the tub. So it's very watery. Okay, so let's go into it. This is a very exciting project actually to do, because you don't know what it's going to turn out to be. It's random, but you'll see as we go along how the two colors are going to actually merge and mix together. Yeah, so I think I'm ready. I think I'm going to, you want to pour it between the plastic and the canvas. Okay, so I see I've got a little bit of a issue here, because I've cut two pieces of plastic. I'm going to turn my canvas over so that I can get access to the plastic at this side. The first one I'm going to pour is the purple, the violet, because it's the lighter of the two. So I want you to watch how it actually forms underneath the plastic. And once again, it's random, very random. So you might not be sure of what to get. I'm pouring it along the top, a fair amount, and we'll see what that does. It starts to run and it starts to do its own thing, and it's not that messy, but you may need to have an undersheet on your table And you see how that's running across there. And then we start to create forms. As it's clinging to the canvas, you can start forming shapes that you like. Okay, so at this point in time, I'm happy. It's coming off the canvas onto the table, but it's not too serious. And you might want to catch this. The bottom is looking good. And you kind of almost half touch it so that it clings and makes these forms. When you like a form, leave it. Let it just do its own thing. And what I'm doing now is I'm going to pour the black, and thinking of where this black should go, but let's not worry about that. Let's just pour it. I'm tipping the canvas over so that it runs down, and it's going to start doing what it wants to do. Okay, so at this stage, at this point in time, I would like to get, there's a bit more purple so that I can get more liquid down the bottom here. And I'm just starting to form the shapes. As you pull, you can pull this plastic, or you could twist it and you get an automatic shape form. So I'm tipping it down and it runs. It's a really cool, fun project, like really messy. I'm trying to hold my paint inside the plastic. Don't be too concerned about these white areas. They actually form part of the image at the end, which I can only promise you is going to be unique. No one can copy your image because it can never be repeated. And that's like the fun part, eh? So there's a nice piece that's running across there. There's paint inside. It's going on my desk. Try to cover most of your canvas without worrying too much. Don't worry too much about covering most of your canvas. The important part here is to remember that it needs to be fairly liquid. The paint needs to be fairly liquid. So what I'm getting now are some shapes that I like. And I'm going to twist over there. I've got a twist happening up at the top. And I've got some random shapes that are in the middle. I'm using 2 sheets of plastic. You can use 1 sheet of plastic to cover the whole canvas, or you can use many sheets of plastic. I sometimes have used the cover that comes when you buy a canvas. You get a plastic cover. Just want to get this corner liquid, using my finger just to spread it around, and then put the plastic onto it, something like that, and get a sense of where things are. There's a big blob of white sitting in there, which is, I'm going to smudge that. I'm going to smudge it in. Okay, remember another thing, that acrylic is actually plastic paint. So when it dries, it's a skin of plastic on your canvas. See these shapes I'm getting? Nice shapes there. By tipping it, I might get a shape happening here. Okay, so you just watch it as you go. And that I've covered most of my raw canvas, and I think we are almost ready to go. I'm going to put some more black in here, just a bit, to get this corner done. Use my finger, just spread it out, and then put your plastic back. You can, if you want to, just tuck the plastic underneath, because once you let it set, you don't want to touch it again. You just want to let it set, maybe in the sun, or outside, or you may be able to use a hairdryer, but I think it might warp the plastic if it's hot. So I've got some shapes coming in there. I'm twisting the plastic to create these little valleys and shapes. You can see, wow, this is actually turning out really nicely, I think. And we're almost at the point where we say, okay, we've done enough. let it sit like that, put it in the sun. We're going to put it in the sun, and we'll have to probably leave it for maybe 15 minutes because it's a hot day, and it'll be dry in 15 or so minutes. But we'll see you at the next segment of the video. So what we've got here is we've put black and purple violet into an envelope of plastic and the canvas, and now is the fun time. We're going to start to take the plastic off. And what we spoke about last time was pinning the corners down with some tape, so you just have to be aware of that. It's dry, very, very dry. It's been sitting in the sun drying. So what we're going to do now, remember, any wet paint that's sitting on the top of the plastic needs to be pulled off. Okay, but it really doesn't matter. What we're seeing now is the interesting shapes that have randomly come in. And try and use plastic that is firm plastic, because then it doesn't break as easily when you take it off. Okay, so I'm going to grab it on this one corner and tug, pull it off, and here we can see a very wet area, so you don't want that to fall into your painting. The less you manipulate the paint, the better. And there we go, nearly at the end. And then you have these magic random shapes. There we go. Plastic is off. And exactly what I said has happened, where we say, okay, we don't want a piece like that. So I'm just going to take a damp cloth, a neat area, and just soak that up. Soak it up so that it's not, well, it's created its own thing. That's very interesting. I'm going to leave that. Everything here is perfect, unbelievable. Interesting how this is printed. The paper, the plastic is printed on there. Well, what I'm going to do, I want to show you this part here. It was where a very heavy amount of paint went into that part. So what we can do there, instead of touching it to get it off, we can wait for the whole painting to dry. Okay, and you will feel it. There are little areas that are still wet up here, but that will dry quickly. And before this dries, we're going to wash this off. We're actually going to wash it off before this dries, but I don't want to touch it and smudge it, or else it ends up to be something completely different. But there's some wonderful, wonderful areas. It looks as if you're looking into some kind of cell, or you're looking into a thorn bush or something. So we're going to affect these areas by painting with a paintbrush on top of those areas. Okay, what I'm doing now is I'm going to kind of inspect everything. You can feel when it's wet, it's a little bit tacky up there, and the rest is dry, which is amazing. We've got a very, very hot day today, so it dried in about 20 minutes. So that's what our painting looks like. I don't like this part, but we're going to sort that out by washing it off. And I'm going to show you how we do that in the next clip, because it'll take me 2 minutes to prepare the material to get that done. But actually, everything else is dry. So we'll see you in the next clip. So we're working on this area here, which is the area I didn't like. And I'm using one of my favorite shape brushes, really big. And I'm going to get some water, and going to put a cloth underneath my painting, because it's all going to be washed off. And you've got to work quite quickly, because you can see what's happening there. There's a large amount of paint sitting in the place that I don't want. And I'm quite generous with my water. Quite generous with my water. Don't let anything dry yet. And there's a really nice complicated little focal point that's happening here. What I'm doing now is I'm just going to wash the excess paint off like that. Like that. Then I might take my brush and just have a quick look at this area. Kind of scrubbing it with my brush. Okay. And then what I'm doing now, I'm just, this can be done outside, but we've got an art studio here. And just trickle some water over the top of that. And let's see. I'm touching it with my finger just to kind of get it loose on the canvas. Something that was like a potential disaster has worked out to be absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. But I do want the white to show through. So I'm going to continue to pour my water on. And I'm looking at it at an angle so I can see, okay, there's a serious bump of paint here, which I don't want. Should actually take a palette knife, but that's a little away from me. And I'm just going to give that a little wash. I want the white to come back. That's what I want here, the white that's sitting in here. And actually, I love it. I think it looks like it should go that way around. I think the painting should go that way around. Of course, the painting can go this way. It can go this way, which I don't like this weight at the top. That's why I'm choosing the weight to be at the bottom. It can go that way, but my preference is that, and I love this, which really was an accident. The paint was too heavy. The paint had not been mixed in the tub fully. So it ended up having this blob there. This is a distraction. I see at the top here. There's a distraction here because it's got print. And it's come from the plastic. So we'll sort that out later. Just have to remember that part. I don't want lettering in my abstract. However, if you decide to make lots of lettering, that's quite interesting. That's for another video. I'll remember that. Okay. Okay, what we've got here, I'm going to turn it the way I think we should use it. This painting was done with plastic, as you remember, and the plastic was a little bit heavier gauge, and it gave a totally different kind of mark. Now what I see here, you've got to kind of look at it and get an idea, okay, what is this? Now, in South Africa we get very heavy thorn trees that look just like this. They're long thorns and they have this very white and very, very sharp. So I'm going to try and turn this abstract into something like that. It can also be looked at like a cell of some kind, because there was a blob down here that wasn't good, and then eventually it turned into something quite nice. And I'm actually going to leave that there. But the theory behind this painting that I'd like to get across is how white makes it look like it's got 3 dimensions. So it's actually got a tonal value. You've got your darker pieces, and then some pieces I'm going to turn into a white and possibly a touch of Naples yellow. And what that'll do is it'll bring some of these shapes forward and then leave everything else to go back. So that's what we're going to play with. So let's go. Let's get started on this. Normally I like to work from top to bottom. From top to bottom. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to, just because of my own curiosity, I'm going to try and get this shape here as almost a circle. Okay, so what we're doing is we're using white and a little bit of Naples yellow I've turned my palette over. I don't need much white for this part, so let's close that up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my favorite brushes again, my filbert brush and my pointed brush. And I'm just going to use white to get this shape. I must point out that what I've done is I've made little pointer marks here with a pencil to try and get this circle as circular as possible. The rest of the circle came from the plastic. Okay, so we're going to start. Let's see how it goes. My brush is slightly wet, and I'm going to begin. I'm not sure what it's going to turn into, but let's see. I want to emphasize this circle. So I'm using a dryish brush to get the edge of my circle. And it doesn't have to turn out to be anything specific. It can be something just out of your mind. Really fun to do. Okay, covering my pencil marks and getting that circle in. Okay, I'm going to come across to the bottom here, confirm the circle, making it as circular as I can, freehand. If you're not too sure, then use the bottom of a jar or the bottom of a drinking glass and you get this circle in. And now that kind of reads as a circle. Okay, we're going to come back to that later when this is dry. Okay, in the meantime what we're doing is we're going to say, okay, using the larger brush, take some Naples yellow and make a mixture with white. So you don't need much for this, and the most important thing is to remember that we're going to look at the painting and see, okay, which areas are we going to work in. I'm working from top to bottom. So making the objects lighter with a little touch of Naples yellow. And Naples yellow is one of those paint colors that you can actually use straight out of the tube because it's actually already mixed. So let's start up here. I'm going to actually take this piece and I'm going to paint it white, and I want you to see how this starts to jump forward. So I'm going to paint it white. That's too much Naples. That's not too serious. We're going to watch it. Keep an eye on it and cover the interrupting marks that are happening and make this thing bounce forward. It's going to come forward. And I hope that you can see that as I've explained, that this now is standing on top of everything else. Okay. This is going to be a completely abstract painting. I'm not making it into a landscape. I'm not changing it into anything that, that is recognizable. I'm simply playing with the shapes that I can see. So let's do this one. And this one is going to jump forward. Okay, there it goes. Turn my brush to get this edge. And this one starts to come forward. You may even want to put a bit of texture on the front here. If you can see that texture that's there, that's actually making it come forward even more. Dry brush in this corner. So you're not painting by number and you're not coloring in. You're using your paint skills to make the colors come forward and go back. So the next one I want to do is this one. Make this one come forward. Remember, by lightening it, it's going to come forward, and by leaving a texture on the edge of it, it's going to come forward. And by warming the color up, it's going to come forward. Keep an eye on it all the time. Try not to get lost in lost in the trying to make something out of it. You're not making something out of it. You're just letting your mind run away and have fun with it. Let's put this one in. Okay, so I've gone from there to there to there. Gone from there to there to my left hand side. And lightening this whole thing. Remembering that the paint dries pretty quickly. So you can come back and do second layers. Keeping the paint on your palette. And the dry brush allows you to fade the paint out. And I'm also hanging on to my dark edges. What happens is when the plastic forms an area, the paint falls down the bubble of the plastic and it makes a darker edge on the outside of your shape, which is something that you can use. This brush is too big, so I'm going to go to my smaller brush again, and keeping with the same colors, naples and white. There's a second coat coming in here. Yeah. Your stronger colors are going to be kind of in the center, maybe to one side, but I'm not going to kill the edge of the bubble, the mark that was made with the plastic. So I'm bringing that up, using fairly thick paint. Bringing this one up. I'm just randomly choosing, as long as they don't cross over each other. It's better if they're separated, which makes sense, so that you have this. Now, one of my companions, my students, said they actually like the quirkiness of this writing that's happening here, which came off the plastic. So I'm still debating that, but I think I might leave it in honor of him, and we see what it looks like. You can always cover it later on if need be. Second coat gets rid of those marks. Okay. And you keep going with this one. Keep going. Lightening this color, this violet that happens underneath. It's actually purple with white, makes it violet. Get a little bit of water, and then come into it again. Watch that the palm of your hand doesn't touch wet paint. Okay, so we go all the way down, make a sharp point on this. Sharp point, make it white, and a sharp point. Now you can see how what's happening is some of these marks are actually going like that, some are going back. And that's really what I'm aiming at. Now we come down here. This is a dirty one, so I'm going to make that a lighter color. It's my opportunity to cover it with some paint. Get a tiny bit of water. It's very, very hot today, so the acrylic paint's drying very quickly. Doesn't mean you have to work fast. You can work slowly. Pick this up, covering this dirty area. Okay, a little bit of texture on the paint there, that's nice. Gives you an edge. Gives you the edge of the area, the paint area that you want. This area here was painted white, so I'm going to just touch it with a bit of the Naples yellow, and not too much, because I don't want these to start arguing with each other. So now we look at the next shape to change, and I think it's working out okay. The next shape I want to change or bring forward is maybe this one here. But I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm going to just start with the wet paint in the center, in the middle of my object. And I'm going to paint it like that. And then when my brush is slightly dry, I'm just going to drag it out there. Okay, paint it on the edge there. So the center of this object here, this piece, actually kind of coming towards you. That's what I'm seeing happen here. And you just let your mind go. It's a fun thing. The secret to this exercise is to have the plastic covering of your canvas and the pouring of the paint under the canvas, or under the plastic, should I say. That is a real touch and go thing. You never know how that's going to turn out. If it doesn't turn out well, just change it. Have another plan. Most of the time it turns out nicely. Okay, so we're lightening this, letting these down. So they start to play around. I'm going to come back here because it's dry. It's dry up here. Maybe dry brush there. Let your mind go. Have fun with it. Let your mind go. I'm going to give you a little flash of what it looks like. That's the kind of thing that's happening, and I think it's working quite nicely. You must remember it's a project that's not difficult to do. It's actually very easy to do. Just start with a grid, and that would be to go back to the original, the start of this video, and you'll actually see how that was created. It's very random. You cannot predict what it's going to do. Remembering that yellow, a kind of yellow, and a purple, violet, are opposite on the color wheel. So they are bouncing off each other. They complement each other. They're complementing each other. Let's do this little piece over here. And that bounces that one up. Then there should be something close over here. Close, so we're going to, where should we go? I wish I could talk to you directly, then I would ask you, where should we go next? Come on, give me a suggestion. Give me an idea where to go. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to bounce this one up. This one's going to bounce up. Come forward. That's what I actually mean, bounce up. Bounce up is not an art term, but I sometimes don't use art terms. More dramatic term. So this is coming forward. Advancing is the most technical term for this. Advancing towards you. Whereas the others, the purple ones are receding. They're going away from you. So it's gone there, 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 there. I see another one that I want to do up at the top. You almost half close your eyes and you actually see it happen. See, oh, there's a hole there. It needs to be fixed, you know. Here's one here. So we're going to fill this one in and see what happens there. We're almost at the end of the painting. It's got a little bit of doubling up to do where you've got lines that you want to cover. Where did we say? I said it this one. Let's say it's that one. What the heck? Doesn't matter. Doesn't really matter. As long as they don't touch each other too much. So you've got this balance that runs down the painting. Okay, let's do this one. And I'm going to go over the top of that piece that you may see. Go over the top of this white. There. This needs a second coat, so we let it dry. Come back to it again. And a little point on here. There, like that. Okay, we let this dry. We come back to it. What that means is something must happen here. Actually, what's coming to mind here is this whole ball needs to be yellow. That'd be really nice. I like that. Let's do that. And the only reason I can see it is because I'm working down. See, okay, that whole ball could be yellow. That'll bounce the ball forward. Is that what you want? That's what you want. And before we start that one, we just do this one. And then we're going to come back to these to cover them and make sure there are no random lines in there. But at this moment in time, let's get the ball in. If you're not sure, start slowly. If you're not sure, start in an area that is, you can't make a mistake. And then see what it does for you. But I certainly want this to be a ball. So I'm going to go over my white areas with the yellow, Naples yellow, and I'm going to bounce the whole ball up. Cut across that one. See what I'm doing? I'm just letting it talk to me. Just let it go. In future videos, in other videos that I do, we're going to get more tight, and we're going to get more carefully painted areas, doing all sorts of things like landscapes, seascapes. Watch the other videos. There's a variety of things that are done. But right now we're doing an abstract. Doing an abstract painting. Okay, that's good enough for now. I'm going to darken this area to give it a shadow, which will be just in a minute or two. Right now I'm going to go second coat on some of these areas, so I can just redefine the shape of those areas. So it's like that. And there's one across here. Where's this one? Here. Now might not even be completely dry, but it's dry enough for a second coat. Get that edge covered. That needs a third coat. That needs a third coat right there. But don't worry too much. The idea is just to have fun. Have fun with it. And then stop and have a look. Stop and look at what we've done. Okay, there's an area. Just making it a little bit warmer and with the yellow. And I think that is pretty close to finished. What we're doing now, I'm going to mix up a dark. We can use violet and yellow again. That makes a very nice dark color. Tiny bit of violet and some yellow, and I'm just using, I've got Naples yellow in my palette, so I can use that. Alright, let's do that. And I'm going to be using my larger brush, mixing up these two colors. And the colors kind of stay in the same range, yellow and purple. And we dry brush around here to kind of a neutral color. Yellow and purple are complementary, so when you mix them together, it gives you a neutral color, which is a nothing color. Neutral color, like a brown. There we go, all the way down. Wrapping my ball. It's almost a globe. Looks like an earth globe or something. And could have it. Put your shadow underneath the object. That's where your eye likes to see shadows. I likes to see shadows underneath things. Dry brush, very dry, and darkening this whole area here. And watch where you want to go. Keep an eye. And I think that's pretty good. Pretty close to the end, what I mean. Not pretty good. This could be halfway through the painting. Might not even be finished, but what I've created is a very strange focal point, and then you get the sparkly stuff that happens all the way up to the top. So thanks for watching. See you next time.